You hear about a border shooting over stolen nuts. Sounds pretty minor, right? Just a local issue. But what if it's not? What if it's something bigger? Today, we're diving into how a single flashpoint on the India-Bangladesh border was allegedly twisted into a powerful tool for domestic political gain. Let's get right into it.
No-nonsense mode. That's the official phrase coming from India's Border Security Force, or BSF. It signals a major shift in policy. But what does that really mean on the ground? And what happens when that policy gets tested by a real-world crisis?
All right, first things first, let's dig into the flashpoint, the actual incident that kicked this whole thing off.
Okay, so picture this. We're on the India-Bangladesh border, in a place called Meghalaya. The BSF, that's India's Border Security Force, they opened fire on two people who've crossed over illegally. And why? What was the big crime? They were supposedly trying to steal betel nuts from a farm. Yeah, you heard that right, betel nuts. And that seemingly small act, well, it's about to set off an international firestorm.
And this is where that no-nonsense mode comes directly into play. It's basically a zero-tolerance policy. It means the BSF has been given the green light to use lethal force if they feel it's necessary to protect Indian land and resources. It's a huge shift, making their whole security posture way more aggressive.
Now you'd think a story about a theft at the border would stay, well, at the border. A local news brief, maybe. So how on earth did this blow up and get international attention? It all boils down to who one of the men was.
And this is the twist, right? This is the piece of the puzzle that changes everything. One of the men killed wasn't just some random person. His name was Osman Hadi, and he was a pretty big deal in Bangladesh, a known anti-India figure tied to a radical group. Suddenly, this isn't about stolen nuts anymore.
Things got even more complicated when the international community chimed in. After Hadi's death, both the US and the EU actually sent out official condolences. Now, the analysis we're breaking down points out a huge contrast here. You have this public statement of sympathy for a known radical figure, while at the same time, those same international powers have been pretty quiet about the ongoing violence against minorities like Hindus in Bangladesh. It's a really interesting double standard, to say the least.
And it wasn't just the international response. What happened inside Bangladesh was a really big deal too. The government there basically gave Osman Hadi a posthumous promotion, calling him a national hero. His funeral was this massive, high-profile event with top leaders attending. And, the fear was that this would just end up glorifying his radical ideas and stir up even more trouble in the region.
Okay, so it's super important to understand that this didn't happen in a vacuum. This one incident, it's really just one move on a much, much larger geopolitical chessboard. So let's zoom out for a second and take a look at that bigger picture.
You can see that India is really on high alert, and it's not just in one place. On land, you've got the BSF in that no-nonsense mode. Out at sea, the Coast Guard is cracking down, detaining illegal fishing trawlers. And then, kind of humming in the background, there are these notices about potential military exercises. All the signals are pointing to a country that's on a much higher state of alert.
So you have to ask, what's really driving this international response? Why the condolences for someone like Hadi? The analysis we're looking at suggests it's not just a random gesture. The argument here is that some Western powers might actually have a vested interest in promoting these kinds of anti-Indian narratives, maybe as a way to kind of stir the pot and influence the power dynamics in the region.
And that brings us to the absolute core of this whole analysis. The argument is that all this external geopolitical tension is being deliberately captured and used for a very specific internal domestic political strategy. The idea here is that this border friction, it's not just a problem to be solved, it's a tool to be used. Yeah, according to this perspective, the recent violence we're seeing isn't random at all. It's not just an unfortunate side effect of tension, it's described as a calculated, deliberate strategy with one primary objective: to polarize voters right before an election.
So how does this strategy actually work? Well, it's broken down into 3 key steps. Step 1. Polarize the voters. You create an atmosphere of fear and urgency, and you really aim that at the moderate, middle-of-the-road folks. Step 2. You want to discourage minority groups, like Hindus and Christians, from even bothering to vote. And then step 3, you rally your base. You drive the remaining voters towards more radical groups who are promising to restore some kind of political order.
And that first step, polarizing the voters, that's the absolute key to the whole thing. And the bullseye, the ultimate target, is the moderate voter.
The source material uses this really potent metaphor. It talks about filling the minds of moderates with poison. The whole point is to just shatter that political center, to make those moderate voters feel like they're backed into a corner and have no other choice but to side with a more extreme ideology. something they would never normally consider.
And if you look at the desired outcome, this is what it's all about. The strategy's goal is to shrink that slice of minority voters who turn out, while at the same time pushing that much bigger slice of moderate voters over into the radical camp. It's literally a plan to redraw the entire electorate.
And this really brings us to the final and most chilling part of the analysis. In this kind of political climate, violence stops being just an unfortunate result of tension. Instead, it becomes the main tool. It's the primary instrument, used intentionally, to reshape the entire political landscape and force a very specific outcome.
So, all of this leaves us with a really critical question to think about. When geopolitics gets turned into a weapon for domestic politics, who actually comes out on top? And maybe more importantly, who ends up paying the price?